good Thursday evening, everyone. You know what that means. It means something big some weeks and something not so big others. But tonight, it's Bowling with the Pfeff. I'm Andrew Pfeffer. Thanks for joining us on our weekly live stream about all things bowling, starting, of course, with your unique bowling stories. If you have one and you'd like to share it on our live stream, you know how the place. It's right here on YouTube. You can contact me at bowlingwiththepfeff@yahoo.com or go to bit.ly/bowlingwiththepfeff, and we've got a little form you can fill out, or direct message me on Facebook. We do have openings and would love to hear your bowling story right here on our live stream. So let's get right to it. We're going to go to the first frame and talk about a comedy sitcom. You may have seen and heard this news. It's been reported by multiple sources that CBS has ordered a pilot episode of a comedy sitcom that's to be based on the story of Tom Smallwood. A lot of people know Tom Smallwood's story. In case you don't, he's the guy who was an auto worker in Michigan, got laid off from his job, actually returned to the PBA Tour, and ended up winning a major shortly thereafter. It was the 2009 PBA World Championship. It was in Wichita, Kansas, a major in his first title. And that, of course, was back when the economy wasn't in great shape, and it was a real feel-good story that got picked up all over the nation. So now CBS reportedly ordering a half-hour pilot for a comedy show based around Tom Smallwood's story. Now, as well known as this story is in the bowling community, it's leaving people to wonder how a comedy will portray that feel-good story of Tom Smallwood. So, our question for you tonight is, what do you think of the idea of a comedy based on Tom Smallwood, who is now a three-time PBA champion, but back about 12 years ago had that huge feel-good story in the midst of an economic downturn? Let us know in the chat. If you're watching on replay, feel free to leave a comment. And if you have any questions about the show or anything we talk about tonight, it's all fair game. So let us know in the chat if you're watching live. If you're team replay, feel free to leave a comment. I will see it one way or the other. Let's head over to our beer frame. And, when I think of comedy, when I think of bowling and comedy, and especially baseball, my good friend Joe Buchholz is the first person that comes to mind. So it really worked out well that we've got kind of a comedy thing to talk about as we invite Joe onto Bowling with the Pfeff. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Andrew.
Yeah, Joe is like I said, big fan of comedy, live streamer, a published author, a baseball aficionado, and of course, into bowling. So we're going to get to all of that. We got a lot to unpack. So let's start with this idea of a comedy sitcom around the story of Tom Smallwood. What do you think of that idea, and how do you think it could succeed?
So, we kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I truly feel that any type of story that has a good feel about it can be a successful TV show if written well. Yeah. So it really doesn't matter what that story is, but as long as the writing behind it is strong, this show could be successful. And I actually like the idea, having done a little bit of research of Tom's story. I'm rooting for something like this. I think it could be great. There's so many television shows that have failed because the premise might have been good, but if the writing is stale, it's going to suffer. And then you could take a lesser idea and make it great just by having that strong structure behind it and the writing. So you said it's.
I'm sorry, you just kind of got garbled there. What did you just say?
Sorry, you said CBS picked this up?
CBS ordered the pilot of it. So we don't know much more than that. We don't know who would play a character based on Tom Smallwood. We don't know when or where this ends up, getting to the viewers, or if it even does. But they have ordered a pilot of that show.
Yeah, like I said, I think it could be successful. I hope it does get picked up. I hope, even if for some chance it doesn't, I hope there's a chance that we can see the pilot. And I can't think of a show that was based around bowling. I know, like, we've talked about this several times in the past, a lot of sitcoms that have done bowling-themed episodes.
Yeah.
Married with Children's done it. Mike and Molly's done it. I would have loved to seen a Sopranos episode where they start at the bowling alley, and then, of course, that's not a comedy, but
Right.
that would have been an interesting show, I would have think.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I'm excited to hopefully it gets picked up.
Yeah, hope so too. What is it? You were talking about bowling scenes and episodes of shows that, kind of, does it for you. That you've got a, I guess, maybe I'm not exaggerating to say you've got a place in your heart for those scenes that come up in bowling alleys. In fact, you had mentioned, I think it was earlier today, on your Facebook group, Choppin' Broccoli, an SNL forum on Facebook, about a bowling skit on a past episode of Saturday Night Live. And I guess to preface all this, we should talk about Choppin' Broccoli, how that all came to be, and what it's all about.
So this is a this is specifically a pandemic project.
Okay.
This came out of sitting on my couch 22 hours a day and looking for things to do. Now, I've been a fan of SNL since, well, actually, let me just go back to when I was 9 days old.
Okay.
I was born October 2nd, 75. This show debuted October 11th, 75. My mom and dad had my uncle and aunt over, and my idiot Uncle Dennis brought over one Jack's Pizza to share amongst 4 people and burned it.
Oh, no.
And my dad burned the popcorn. So that's my earliest SNL story. Was I was in my mom's lap watching the first episode with burnt popcorn and burnt pizza. But this forum is just a way for me to share my love of the show. We started this November, and I've been basically recapping 1 or 2 episodes a day, Mondays through Fridays. Ever since then, I think we're on season 10 right now. And today, ironically, was an episode from November of '84. Billy Crystal played a character named Ricky, which was a recurring character on the show. And the first time he ever did it, he was basically acting out a scene at a bowling alley where he was trying to multitask between concentrating on what he was doing in the lanes and talking to a girl.
Okay.
So it was kind of interesting that, knowing that we're doing this tonight and then that pops up today. Bowling for me, like you were actually the guy that introduced me to bowling in 1984 or 1985. And, it's always been something I've enjoyed. And when I see it show up on a TV show, I instantly think, oh, Andy's got to see this.
Yeah.
So, told you about it today. And, I don't know. It's a sport that, I don't know. I've always embraced. It's the only sport that I've ever played where you can enjoy nachos at the same time and do well. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, oh, the nachos are hindering my my score here tonight. It might be helping because the food's making me happy. Now I'm going to knock down these pins. It just kind of comes full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be lying if I said that the nacho element of really anything, let alone bowling, was not a big draw for me. But don't get it on your bowling hand, because then the grip,
Exactly.
there could be a problem there. So you kind of mentioned it, how and when you got into bowling. And I don't want to take credit for it, but there must have been something when you got out there, maybe for the first time, that kind of drew you in. Was it, was it hanging with friends? Was there more to it? Was there a competitive element there?
So I will give you credit because, and this is a true story. Uh, Andy and I grew up together. I met him in 1982, so I would have been 6, and you would have been
Uh, yeah, 4 or 5 ish.
4 or 5.
Hmm.
And then very early on in that relationship, you would tell me about bowling, and I didn't know what the heck you were talking about. And one day, I think it was your mom or dad's, we're going to take you to Brown Deer Lanes, and you asked me if I wanted to come. And I looked up at grandma and mom, and I said, can I do bowling today? And so initially, the appeal was doing something that you enjoyed, a shared experience, if you will. Now, the first couple times we did it, it was not in a league setting. It was just, a Sunday afternoon. But our first league night, which was in like 84, 85, I, they have you roll a couple games to like handicap you. And I remember this like it happened yesterday. I rolled a 76, and our coach, which her name was Kim. I looked up at her and I was like, Kim. Kim was tall, by the way.
Yes.
I was 9. So it's like, Kim, I got a 76. Is that good? And she just looked at me and she was like, you know what? Sure. Are you having fun? That's all that matters. And I think just maybe getting her, vote of approval, like, hey, you're just, as long as you're having fun here, and it was fun because you're just spending time with friends. I as it turns out, ended up being pretty good. I think that first year that you and I bowled, I think I had a 117 average, and won a trophy. So like when they start giving you trophies,
that's a big thing for a kid.
You get a trophy, and then next, like a pretty girl says, oh, who's the guy with the trophy? And so then I start winning more trophies. I think I did 3 or 4 years of bowling, like in middle school, and I won 2 like high average trophies. I won a championship, and then I won, I don't know if you remember this, if you had already moved to Minnesota, but I won an 8-pin tap.
Oh. Okay.
Tri-City National Bank, but it was like the smallest trophy ever. It was like the size of like an eraser. I mean, I almost think they forgot to actually buy the real trophy. They were just like, go to the dollar store, just get something.
Do something.
If it's a candy bar or whatever we can do. So yeah, I liked the social aspect of it, but then as I started to learn the game, the little, how do you adjust for the spare, or where do you set up, for, certain splits and all that. Then it started to kind of get to the competitive aspect that, I had with baseball. So I started entering tournaments. I started doing, there was a point, I think in 8th grade, where I had 2 leagues. I did the one league where just Moser and I would just like goof off and talk about wrestling and, do impressions. And then the next morning I would do like a serious league where none of my friends knew about it. So mom would just drop me off and I would do that. And that got me thinking about like tournaments and, where I could kind of go with this. So yeah, I don't know. I think that if it wasn't you, like if it was another friend and they weren't passionate about it, maybe it doesn't lead to anything, but the fact that you loved it and we were really good friends, it made me want to do it more.
Yeah. I think it's also important to kind of point out that we're talking about the mid 1980s in Milwaukee, a relatively small community bowling center, which was a really, for me anyway, a really special time, in the history of the sport. People will say it was more popular then than it is now. The equipment was different, and the scene was different in these bowling centers. They were community gathering places. We obviously didn't have cell phones and internet, and the bare majority of it, or minority of us, were lucky enough to have cable TV, but you had that bowling center. Did you feel kind of a kinship with, with the community, with the other bowlers, and really in this case the other junior bowlers in Brown Deer?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Brown Deer Lanes was like my peach pit. Or if you think of like certain hangouts on shows, like the coffee house on Friends, like Brown Deer Lanes for me was that place for about 4 years. Not only with the people that I was bowling with, like the other friends of mine, but like the family. You'd walk in and they'd be like, hey Joey, and they knew your shoe size and they knew what you ordered, from the pretzel nuggets or pizza or whatever. So yeah, there was a big sense of community. And the funny thing is, when I bought a house in 2014, and there was a bowling center maybe a mile and a half away, and I wanted that to be like, in a sense, our Brown Deer Lanes. Like I wanted like a regular family night, whether it was like a Friday night or a Sunday afternoon. I wanted to do a regular thing. And then sadly, the owner had some health issues, and he had to shut down like right after we bought the house. Like not even like a month or two later. I think we went there twice, and then it shut down. But yeah, a bowling alley is a great place because you've got different elements. You've got the game itself. You've got a Packer game. It could be on league night. I know I've actually done leagues where they do like theme nights where 60s night, 80s night, different television show themes. So yeah, I think it's a great place to just get together and just share memories.
Yeah. And I love that this kind of centers on Brown Deer Lanes because it had that appeal for me, but it's also one of really the only ones in that immediate area of Milwaukee, those northern suburbs of Milwaukee, that has this staying power and is still there. I started at a place in Thiensville that's no longer there. There was a place in Mequon that's no longer there. There's a place in Fox Point no longer there. One in Glendale that's no longer there. When you hear of these centers that are, that we're losing, are going under for various reasons, I would think, for me, it really kind of hits me because I remember parts of my childhood there. Does it have the same impact for you when we lose a center in that area?
Yeah, and I'll even build on that. So bowling lanes in general, like you said, my mom and dad met at a bowling alley, and that's gone. That one in Thiensville, I used to live actually across from it, the building that it was in. You and I have actually used to spend time there.
Yep.
I think that's where we found out about Anchorman, was in that building. Yeah, of course it's sad. I mean, anything that reminds you of childhood and old memories, whenever you see places like that shut down, of course, it's very sad. Do you remember Johnson's Park?
I do. Kind of like mini golf and
yeah.
Rides and things like that.
Yeah, so my mom went there. I went there. I took my niece there when she was younger. That's gone. So yeah, like whenever these places that you spent a lot of time at and have all these great memories, when you start seeing these businesses fall, it is sad. And I'm amazed that Brown Deer Lanes is still going strong. I think right before the pandemic started, we ordered like a bunch of tacos there, and it wasn't a bowling day, but they did something on Facebook like, we're going to do these $5 tacos, and I went and I saw Kim and got some great tacos, and I said I'm going to come back soon, and then things shut down, but yeah, I can't wait to get back. I love it there.
Yeah. It was and is still a great place. One of the other things I remember we were both into back then was watching the pros compete on ESPN and certainly on ABC on Saturday afternoons. Do you remember how you got into all that?
I mean, again, I mean, in general, like when someone you loves something, that becomes something that you're into. And I don't know if I would have ever like sought it out, but I remember watching those with you with Marshall Holman, Mark Roth, Pete McCordick. I remember the host names, Bo Burton and who's the other guy?
Chris Schenkel.
Chris Schenkel.
Yeah.
I remember Bo Burton would do his little tips.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I loved it. I think I was as loyal to the PBA on ABC as I was to Major League Baseball and the World Wrestling Federation and Saturday Night Live. Like, it was just an event I didn't want to miss. I forget what time it was, if it was like, 3 o'clock on a Saturday, 2 o'clock, but I have so many great memories watching those. McCordick's 300 game.
Yeah.
There was a game, I don't know if you guys talked about it when you had Marshall Holman on your show, but there was a game where he had like a 60 score through 5. And the camera just zooms in on him, and he just looks at the camera and he goes, and I just thought that was great television. Like, this guy, like, they're supposed to be like selling this competition. He's telling you, change the channel. There's nothing to see here anymore.
Yeah, I did neglect to ask him about that. But I noticed even just now you mentioned Pete McCordick and the 300 game. What is it about that particular event that really resonates with you? Because you talk about Pete McCordick a lot.
I do, and is that going to be like my legacy? Like, oh, the guy that talked about McCordick passed to me yesterday. No, what I remember about that telecast specifically was his face and his like, he was shaking. Like, when he had 11 strikes, the way they zoomed in on it, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it had never been done on TV, or maybe it happened once.
It had been done several times, but it had been a while. It had
been a while, and maybe not on the, because that was that on the Firestone?
No, it was a different tournament. I do have the YouTube link in the comments in the chat right now. And I'm not saying go away from this show, but after the show, if you want to relive it, it's there. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a major. I could be wrong, but
whatever it was, when we saw that, I'll never forget just how into it he was. And it always reminded me, like, when I was pitching or when I was bowling, or even like when I do my show or coming on your show, there's that moment right before where it's like, okay, this is big. This is an event. And that is, to this day, the thing I remember most about watching those telecasts with you was it's that moment right before he releases the ball, where he's just looking and he's just like, okay, this is it. And boy, I could watch that. I could watch that every day. It just it's something about that moment resonated with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you also did some bowling back then.
Come on.
We keep coming back to the socks, right?
I know we're live, guys. I know we're live here, but Mom, why did you make me wear these socks? Look at I'm wearing socks up to my thighs. That's you. That's you or Grandma. Leave the home. Well, all right. Let's have an intervention later.
Hey, this is 1987. Red carpet Regency Lanes. It's a good look for the times.
Look at the shorts too. What is going on here? Look at this.
Everybody wore that stuff.
Angles over here. All right, my mom's getting grounded.
Yeah. No, this is 1987. My 10th birthday party at Red Carpet Regency. It's a long time ago, but do you remember anything about that day?
I dressed poorly. I mean, I made some poor decisions with the wardrobe. I don't remember. I'm sure we had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Which venue was this at?
Red Carpet Regency, another one which is no longer there.
Okay, so one thing I can tell you, Regency is where you and I went, and I shot my 664.
I remember that. Yep.
That was like a big moment for me. Like I was like 20, and I thought, okay, 664. This is going to put me through college.
Oh yeah, but like I said, that's 1987, and another thing about Milwaukee back then. Not only do you have the Pro Bowlers tour, but you've got local programs too. Bowling with the Champs, the bowling game. Tell me what you remember about those. I know you have very specific memories, at least about the bowling game. That's for sure.
I'm going to tell you right now, like I'm getting chills thinking about how I used to spend Friday nights as a kid. I used to watch. Now, this all depended if the Brewers or the Bucks were on that night. But on a night that they were on Channel 18, I would watch. It would be the bowling game at like 6:30. Then it would be a Bucks or Brewers game. And then it would be a world-class championship wrestling from Dallas, Texas. That was my Friday nights as a kid. And then there would be Billy Joel music in the background. I'd be eating, squeezed cheese and drinking Mountain Dew. I can't tell you how genuine I am when I say I wish I could go back in time and relive those Friday nights, because those three, like a bowling game, a Brewers game or a Bucks game, and wrestling, and then chasing it with Mountain Dew and bad snacks is my world. And I just want to say, it's somewhere out there. The bowling game, I was such a bowling game fan that I taped the very last episode. Now, this is not the last episode because they came back on TV 58 a couple months later. But the last episode on Channel 18, it was Tom Cole, Lee Rothman, and two guys. I forget their names, Magna and Yechter.
Okay, I think Dennis Yechter and
Dennis Yechter and yeah. So they competed 2 versus 2 for charity.
Mm-hmm.
I used to watch that, and I'm not exaggerating here, once a month for about 10 years. Because I just enjoyed, like, I got to find that tape, Andy, is all I'm saying.
It was so cool, at least, for me where I stood as a younger kid into bowling. And let me kind of set this up for people who have never seen the bowling game. I believe the people bowled like a 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th frame, and they would mark scores, and if they got a strike or a mark or something like that, he would pull the frame down and there would be some prize underneath. I couldn't get enough of that. I had to know what was underneath the frame.
Yeah, so I think the way it worked, it had secret frames. Mm-hmm. So, it was 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. So you can get a 120 was a perfect score. And if you got a strike in the secret frame, you won some artichoke dip or, a gift card to get a car wash or something. But it was just, what I liked about it was just you and I on that show. It wasn't celebrities.
Yep.
Like Tom Cole's not even like he wasn't a bowling personality. He was a DJ that they just thought was a good host for the show. And I think Lee Rothman was also a DJ, like early in his career. I think that's what those guys were known for. But when I think of the 80s, I think of, Reitman and Miller, Tom Cole and Lee Rothman, Hulk Hogan, it just, those guys, even though they were local, were as a big a part of my childhood as the Brewers or the Packers, because they were every Friday for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get enough of that as a kid.
It was a long run, and I would add in, at least for me personally, the incomparable Hank Stoddard, who was WTMJ's sports director and, of course, host or co-host, as the time would depict, of Bowling with the Champs, which was also in Milwaukee back then. As you've mentioned a couple times, you were big into baseball. Both before and after that time. And we've talked to, AJ Johnson, who is touring pro right now, who is into baseball. You've got others like Tommy Jones and the great Earl Anthony. He was a minor league pitcher before he started on the PBA tour. When it comes to those two sports, are there any similarities that maybe one translates into certain aspects of the other and vice versa?
Boy, that's a good question. I was a pitcher when I played ball, and I would say that the way I felt on a mound was very similar to the way I felt at the approach when I was bowling. My thinking is, because in baseball, and this is how I feel the pitcher controls the outcome of a game. If the pitcher is on, he's going to win that battle. And I think in bowling, obviously, if you're feeling it that night, if you've got it, you're going to dominate those pins and the lanes like a pitcher would a hitter. So all I can say is, like, my psyche was very similar in my approach. Like, when I had it, I knew I was going to win, or I was going to have success. Sometimes the winning is trivial based on how, like, another person does. But I would say that the feelings that I had internally were very similar, that like, this is the moment right now. So, like, everything, like, there's no place I'd rather be. And I've always tried to be in the moment, whether it was on the mound or bowling. So, I mean, obviously they're two very different games, but in just the way they made me feel while I was doing them, were very similar.
Yeah. So 1987 is the year that I left Milwaukee. My family moved to the Twin Cities in Minnesota, where I continued my bowling in spades. It's all I wanted to do. Somewhere along the line after that, you left bowling. You decided not to do it. What happened? What was the thought process then, and why did you end up quitting?
So, to be as transparent as I could possibly be, when you left, the just simple act of going bowling and doing it weekly wasn't as fun, because the people I was doing it with now didn't have the same love for it as you did. It was more, casual. Like, maybe their parents said, okay, you gotta pick something. So you're either going to go to the library or you're going to go bowling or whatever. But it just wasn't as fun, because the people I was doing it with, it wasn't the same experience. I continued to get better, and I still enjoyed it on my own. But then when you take away, I guess the one thing that made you love it in the first place, then it just wasn't the same. It's not like I stopped loving it, but the act of doing it weekly wasn't as fun because of the piece that was now missing. Now, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. The family had to do what they had to do.
That's right.
And it all worked out in the end. I mean, did we know back in 1987 that we'd both be hosting talk shows on YouTube? So it all worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Your talk show, as we're going to get to a little later, is about baseball, and it's a really neat idea that we're going to talk about. But you've mentioned your fandom of the Milwaukee Brewers. At some point, you ended up striking up a friendship, pardon the pun, with former Brewers player Rob Deere. How did that happen?
Completely by accident. And I'll tell you how that happened. In 2014, I took my family to a Chinooks game. They're the summer league team here in Mequon. Mm-hmm. And Robin Yount is one of the, owners of the team. And one night we had tickets like the last row, like basically right underneath the press box. So anyone coming in and out of the press box, I would see they were walking right by me. Okay. And I noticed that, Robin Yount came out, And then this really big, tall guy was right behind him. And he turned around, and I actually whispered to Mom. I said, "It's Rob Deere. That's Rob Deere." And then I noticed all of these people were coming up to Robin. Oh, it's hey, Robin Young, Robin Young. And nobody was approaching Deere. So I got up, and I just kind of casually walked by him. And I didn't know what I was going to say, but I said, "You're Rob Deere." And he kind of nodded, and he's like, I am Rob Deere. And I said, coincidentally, I knew he was coming to Appleton later in the month for first pitch.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? I'm actually taking my family to see you in Appleton in like 3 weeks. So, we'll see you then. And I don't even remember how all this happened, but then like one of us friended the other on Facebook. And then like a week after that, he invited me to a camp he was doing. He did these kind of mini fantasy camps. He brought in guys like Jim Gantner, Bill Schroeder, Jerry Augustine, and he would have these like 2 or 3 day camps. And they're like $300 to do. And he invited me. He's like, just do it. Don't worry about the money. Just come. He goes, maybe you can, get some other friends to do it. So I had some other friends show up, and we just start talking. Like every day we were talking baseball. And ironically, the day the camp comes, and, it's a 3-day thing. So the first day was just kind of drills and stories and stuff like that. Day 2, I was, because we had about, 20 people, and then we had coaches. And I said, hey, nobody that signed up for this is here to pitch. Everyone wants to hit. Could I pitch on Saturday? And he's like, absolutely. Nobody else wants to do it. So I got, the friends and family that I had living here come out to Franklin to see me pitch. And in the top of the first inning of that game, I hit a fly ball to left field. And then the most unusual thing happened. It felt like I was shot. And I limped to the bench, and I was actually thinking, like, why are people bringing guns to a fantasy camp? Well, it turns out I tore my calf completely off the bone.
Oh.
Like, it was the worst pain ever. Like, camp was over for like an hour while they tended to me, and they got a doctor there or a nurse or whatever. And the next day, I came back for day 3 on crutches, and they had me throw out like a first pitch. But we stayed in touch. And then the next summer, he asked me to coach for some kids camps. And so I committed myself to coach with him for kids camps. But unfortunately, that's I don't know if it was weather related or what it was, but they didn't have enough people sign up, so it never happened. And that was like 2015, and then we kind of just fell out of touch. I think things happened. I think he took a job in Indiana, but it was so weird to like kind of for a year or so be buddies with the guy you looked up to. He's calling me nicknames. I'm calling him nicknames. We're buying beers for each other. We're sharing a pizza.
You're tight.
Yeah, very surreal. Like, yeah, he would be like, hey, big guy. And I'm like, hey, what's up, 45? I'm like, I just called Rob Deere 45 casually, like, whatever. So yeah, that was kind of that was a big thrill. That was a fun time.
That's awesome. And I should also mention, I can't forget to mention, that Joe is the author of the book Two Loves: The Story of a Baseball Polygamist, which is about the 2008 season, which is very important in in Brewers lore. But for you, that was an important season, doubly. Tell me about the book. Why did you decide to write a book about that season?
All right, so just like meeting Rob Deere by accident, this book was never planned. Like, there was never an intention. Like, I'm a writer. I've written poetry. I've written short stories. I never set out to write a book. What happened was in the summer of 2007, I went to see a Mets game at Miller Park. Tom Glavine was going for 300 that night for the Mets.
300 wins.
300 wins. Baseball wins.
Right.
And the game ended up going like 14 innings. Jeff Jenkins won it on a walk-off. I was rooting for the Mets that night because of the history that I wanted to see. And when I was walking back to my car that night, a Brewers fan, who I think I may have recognized from, somewhere else, started like verbally bullying me, like, "Oh, go back to the Bronx." And I had to correct him. I'm like, "Well, Queens, but I get you." He's like, "You suck. The Mets suck." And I tried to explain to him that I'm a Brewers season ticket holder. I'm a huge Brewers fan, but I also love the Mets because of superstations, and I just became a fan of the Mets in '84. And is that a crime? I don't understand. The very next day at work, I explained to another friend named Andy Gilson. I said, "I don't understand why people get so uptight when you root for two teams in a sport. I don't understand that." I said, "You know what? I'm tired of explaining it. I don't want to have this conversation anymore. I'm just going to write a book explaining it, and then I'm done with it." And like 6 months later, I started writing the book. It was March of '08. It was spring training. I told my wife at the time, I said, "I know this is going to sound crazy because we have a 2-year-old, and like, how crazy would it be if I wrote a book about baseball?" And she actually, like, without even answering the question, she got her laptop out of the bedroom. She put it down in front of me and said, "Go at it. This is going to be great." So what I did was I documented the 2008 season, which I knew was the last season at Shea Stadium for the Mets. And then, as it turned out, was the first year in 26 years that the Brewers made the World Series, or the playoffs.
The playoffs, yep.
The playoffs. So obviously we know how that season ends. The Mets lost their last game ever at Shea Stadium to prevent a game 163, which would have been Brewers at Mets. That would have been like the ultimate ending to the book. It did not happen. But what the book did answer was, well, which team do you love more? And obviously you can see by this, 18-year-old hat that I'm wearing, that the two kinds of loves for the teams are just different. I feel like I married the Mets. The Mets are my soulmate. And the Brewers are, you take them to Culver's after a loss. You tousle their hair, you teach them about the birds and the bees, and, you have your first beer when they turn 18 or 20, 21, 21, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want YouTube to take us down.
Right. No, and I'll tell you the special part, for me is not only are you really one of maybe 3 or 4 of my good friends who are published authors, but I got married in the summer of '08, and the wedding is in that book. So, I'm eternally grateful that is mentioned in print somewhere, other than our wedding album or our, wedding video, but that it's kind of part of this grand story, really, about cheering for 2 baseball teams. Your love for baseball has also resulted in a very popular Facebook page that you've really marketed well and done a lot with, called the Utopian Baseball Universe. Tell us a little bit about what the Utopian Baseball Universe is about, and looks like you're up to 720 members, which is a great number considering you were at a fraction of that just months ago.
All right, so I'll try not to get too choked up here, but in 2014 I lost my dad, and all right, sorry,
it's okay.
Wanted to create something that would occupy my mind for a little bit, and just over 6 years, I just kind of built little pieces of it. So for people not familiar with it, what the Utopian Baseball universe is I basically take everything I love about Major League Baseball, and then I change some things to make it perfect. So like the schedule. MLB does an unbalanced schedule. I think the Mariners have been to Miller Park 3 times in 25 years. I got rid of the DH. I added 2 teams. I made, instead of having an American League and National League, I have one league that has 4 divisions of geography, north, south, east, and west. And then basically what the gist of the project is I built rosters that have players from every era, every Negro League Hall of Famer. So Brewers specifically, you've got on one team Paul Molitor, Robin Yount, Cecil Fielder, Ryan Braun, Christian Yelich, Teddy Higuera, Cecil Cooper. So you're
Cecil Fielder or Prince Fielder?
Prince Fielder. Did I say Cecil Fielder?
Yes.
Prince Fielder. What I meant to say was we have Cecil Fielder's son.
Right.
And then what I do is I take basically a random number generator, which pulls a date, a random date in history. So let's say it says, May 5th, 1974. Then I take all the games from May 5th, 1974, and I shuffle the number of games. So let's say it was 14 games. I shuffle a number, and then I map those games to my schedule, and then I share the results as if they're happening. So think of Field of Dreams, but it's 8 months long, and I recap it nightly as if things are actually happening. So it's fiction, but it's for your imagination. As you mentioned last year, I only did it for friends. 60 people we had on October 30th last year. I think by February 1st, we were up to 80. And then on February 1st, I decided I wanted to grow it, and I wanted to maybe get to 150, 200 members. And word of mouth just got out. Some people I told it about, they told 10 friends. And then they told 10 friends. And then it just really built into this thing that I never thought we'd get to 700 members. I mean, you and I remember reaching out to you and saying, we might get to 150 members this year. Mm-hmm. Like, I was proud of it. I was like, oh my, we're going to double this before the season starts. We're at 720 right now. Yeah. I have, I'm not going to name drop here tonight, but I have a former Major League All-Star in the universe. Mm-hmm. I have one of my favorite musicians is joined today. He asked to come in. Wow. Like, this is just amazing to me. And I've made, my favorite part of this, quite honestly, is the friends that I've made in the last 6 weeks, getting to know people that also love baseball and getting to know about their families and their hobbies and their passions. That's the best part. Yeah. So like, I can't see this stopping now. There's going to be a 3. There's going to be a season 3. There's going to be a season 4. This has become my identity now. Now I think people, when they think of me, they're going to think, oh, that's that guy that created the Utopian Baseball universe. So like this is my life now as it relates to baseball.
Yeah. I love, the element of live streaming that you've added to this. I love the element of a community in a shared love, a shared passion, in that case for baseball. We're really trying to do the same thing here with bowling, and it's just kind of cool to see that idea, really come to fruition and succeeding in it. So, I'm incredibly impressed with that, and I hope you're proud because, you really should be. So through all this, of course, bowling has kind of taken a back seat. What would it take, or do you see yourself getting back into bowling?
So if I'm creating like the perfect storyline here, and I talked to my sister about this just yesterday. If it were my choice, I would be bowling at least once a week. Maybe not year round, but maybe, a short league, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. I would be doing tournaments 2 or 3 times a year. The issue right now is health. I've had some health setbacks in the last 8 or 9 years that make it harder for me to enjoy it as much as I would want to. I've got, pinched nerves and heel spurs. And even though I'm right-handed, my left thumb just quit like 6 years ago. So what I want to do is get into better physical shape so that I can do this and for it to be right.
Yeah.
Like I can see a bowling alley from outside my window, and I've been there a couple times for like a cheeseburger or just take my daughter or whatever. But for me to do it the way you and I did it in the 80s, I have to get into better shape, and I'm taking those steps. I am a competitive person, and the thought of entering like a 2-day tournament, I think, excites me. I think getting into a league with other like-minded people, even if it was like like one of those themed leagues I mentioned, baseball fans bowling league or something like that.
Yeah.
I would be really into that. I have a ball that I got drilled like 6 years ago that I've only used 3 or 4 times because of the pain I guess it was causing. But it's not going to take much. Maybe it'll take like, one guy that lives in Eau Claire to like keep prodding me and say, hey, you got to do this. I cannot wait till the day you and I can get back on a lane again, and I can try to, hit that 664, because that was just lightning in a bottle that day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, totally on board. I will do the prodding. Love to, to be there when you get back into it. Not if, but when. And it's funny, kind of the similarities that that you just said between that and our last guest, Pat Humphrey, who also quit the game. He said, I want to do it right. I don't just want to do it just to do it. I have high standards, and I want to, I want to live up to those high standards. So from here, then, if we're going to, I'm going to assume that bowling is in your future, but what else, what else do we see from you moving forward?
So, I mean, my life is a lot different than what it was 4 or 5 years ago. I gave up a career in bank. I was in banking 19 years. And then I took a job when I moved back to Wisconsin, specifically to lose weight. I took a job in a receiving area of a big chain department store. I unloaded a truck for a year and a half, 5 days a week, to help me lose weight. I would love to get back into that at some point. But quite honestly, like this baseball project, I think, is my main creative focus right now. But everything's connected. If that is making me happy, that's going to help me get better physically. And if I'm better physically, then you're going to see me on those bowling lanes at some point. I'm going to win I've got the 8-pin tap tournament. I'm going after the 9-pin tap, baby. Or what are those 1-pin tap? I want to do what is the one where you get if you get the 1, it's a strike. Do you know what I'm talking about? So if you get a gutter, if you get a gutter ball, it's a strike. If you get a 1, that's what you want to do. It's like
ball?
Yeah, so a 20 is a perfect score. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
So it's I did one of those ones where if you got a 1 and a 1, that was perfect.
Right.
But if you got a gutter, they counted it as a strike because it would just be easy to throw a gutter or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like I would be into that, doing tournaments again, doing leagues again, just going out on a Friday night, just splitting a pizza with someone and just bowling. Like I miss all that. So again, it's going to happen. But as far as like what I see for my future, as far as like who I am, it's the baseball. If that gets me back into writing, if that gets me back into coaching, I haven't completely slammed the door on maybe playing in a rec league or something again. Finally get to pitch off a mound. Yeah, it's baseball and bowling. It's the two loves, you know.
Yeah, an aptly named live stream. We have some important business to get to, and I say that because I've promoted a reveal, a guest reveal for our next live stream. I put a picture of this person's elbow on our Facebook page, saying that I haven't taped my elbow that way before, but if I could, bowl the way this person bowls, I'd probably give it a try. So without further ado, our next guest on Monday for a show that I'm calling The Champ Is Here is the one and only Francois Lavoie.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, he is the reigning Tournament of Champions champion. He has shot 2 televised 300s. He has 5 PBA national titles. 3 of them are majors. And he makes his home in Wichita, Kansas. We've talked Francois Lavoie in the past. I got to get your immediate reaction to this news that he's coming to Bowling with the Pfeff in, 4 days?
So if Mr. Lavoie is watching, I'm going to tell you, I'm looking right in your eyes right now. You are my guy in 2021. Obviously, I learned about you a long time ago from Andrew. I actually said to him, I said, this name, this sounds like if bowling had good guys and bad guys, like this would be like one of these guys, like an antagonist trying to get under the skin of someone. So like I am very much looking forward to this episode. Yeah. This is a big get.
It is a big get, and he's a terrific player. And I've messaged him over the course of the past week, and had to work out schedules and things like that. He was competing at the World Series of Bowling, which is going on really right now as we speak, but is free to do our live stream on Monday, March 15th. So as I always say, get your questions ready and get ready for a great conversation with PBA champion Francois Lavoie. Big Joe Boo, Joe Buchholz, Grafton, Wisconsin. Thank you so much for your time and really going down memory lane, to a time that I will always hold dear and memories that last forever, bowling in the Milwaukee area in the 1980s.
I had so much fun. I still can't believe we're doing this. Just 2 big shots talking bowling. I love it.
Shots. Can I hit you up for one more thing, because I kind of got ahead of myself, because on our program we do go off the sheet and we ask you as the guest to challenge someone who you think would be good, you'd like to see on Bowling with the Pfeff. And we're talking any skill level, just someone who has a passion, a fire for the sport of bowling. So Joe Buchholz, the floor is yours. Who would you like to challenge?
So I had 2 people in mind, but I'm going to go with a gentleman that I named earlier in the show. We got to find Tom Cole, who was one of the hosts of bowling, the bowling game.
Yep.
We got to get Tom Cole. Like whatever I need to do to make that happen. And I'm being selfish here. I want to get Tom Cole on the show because we gotta get a hold of that tape.
Yeah.
we got to get a hold of that last episode. So Tom Cole is my choice to appear on a future show.
All right. Well, Tom, if you're seeing this, hit me up on Facebook. You can direct message me there. Email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com. We will get you into the schedule, get you booked in, and have a great conversation about one of the great local bowling programs of the 1980s and really ever, if you're Joe or me, and that is the bowling game. So yeah, that'll do it. Joe, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you spending the time with us, and continued success in the Utopian baseball universe. I will be there every step of the way, watching you grow and watching that great project that's turned into really a Facebook success story evolve and become more and more popular.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You bet. And another great conversation, Bowling with the Fef, with Big Joe Buchholz. Again, be sure and join us Monday, March 15th, 6 p.m. Central, where I will speak with PBA champion Francois Lavoie. Until then, be just and fear not. We will see you again on Monday night.